It has gone dark in the House of the Dragon, and it's done so suddenly. This was not only caused by horrifying caesareans and burnt-up Velaryons. While it was inevitable that comparisons would be made between Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon, it seems Driftmark has just committed a cardinal GOT sin. To find out more and also to see why Aemond's brutal character change has tongues wagging, stay with us until the end of this video. First up, the latest House of the Dragon rewrites Fire and Blood history. The latest episode of Dragon has, in its shocking finale, managed to rewrite George R.R. Martin's history in Fire and Blood, although this may have been missed by some fans. Laenor escaped his fate in the TV episode, but it was still impossible to tell if he was actually sailing off into the sunset with a happy ending, or if something more sinister is waiting. Then, Driftmark compares to The Long Night for all the wrong reasons. House of the Dragon is charting new waters with every episode, and kudos for that, but the ever-present ghost of Game of Thrones still plagued the new series. Driftmark is now being awkwardly compared to GOT Season's 8th episode, The Long Night, and not for any of the good stuff. The fact is, The Long Night is famous for the GOT episode nobody could see because the lighting was so poor. Now in Driftmark, the same thing has happened again. While The Long Night could possibly be the most impactful GOT episode, and also the one that saw the end of characters like Theon Greyjoy, Lady Melisandre, and Jorah Mormont, it also ended the arc of the White Walkers and the Night Kind after 8 seasons. That alone should have catapulted it into the history books. Instead, it had viewers reaching for the remote control to push the brightness of their TV sets up to red line levels, just to be able to see the action. That's how dark it was. But will there ever be an end to the shadow scenes? Keep watching. We're going to bring you the lowdown in a moment. And despite fan complaints, cinematographers do it again. Fabian Wagner was the cinematographer for this one, and despite complaints by fans, he stuck to his guns. He told Wired that the viewers simply don't know how to tune their TV sets. Many of the scenes in House of the Dragon, Episode 7, were huddled in shadows too. On the breaches of Driftmark, Daemon, played by Matt Smith, and Emma D'Arcy's Rhaenyra finally get busy, a moment every fan had been waiting for. But suddenly the scene was so dark it was hard to tell what was being touched by whose hand. One could argue that this was a way to bypass censors. But that doesn't even hold water. Remember the well-lit raunchy scenes from GOT? Of course you do. Even Emilia Clarke had a lot to say about the pressures of filming and the nude. So we also doubt it was a choice made to protect Emma D'Arcy and Matt Smith's modesty. Still, the shadow world continued. There was also the moment, a key one at that, where Aemond Targaryen flew above Driftmark and claimed Vagar. Viewers were left squinting into the shadows again. At last, when Vagar lit up the screen, when he threatened to set the young Targaryen on fire, we could see again. On a more practical and financial note, it seems ludicrous that House of the Dragon, which one could only assume has a gargantuan CGI budget, would waste the potential of magnificent visuals in every scene on visuals that are hardly, well, visible. The question is, why doesn't House of the Dragon take a lead from Euphoria? That production seems to have gotten it right. Stay with us to find out. But GOT and House of the Dragon are not the only productions huddled in darkness. This appears to be happening across the board, and there's a whole discussion about how TV shows and even movies are simply putting out scenes that are too dark. The Batman with Matt Reeves is a prime example. Granted, the rainy and dark aesthetic was a continuum throughout the Gotham City scenery, but that doesn't make it easier for fans to enjoy. In 2016 already, there was a Vulture op-ed about the tendency to film scenes that are too dark. In that post, Jane the Virgin was compared to Mr. Robot. Again, in 2018 this time, TV Line had a piece about key moments in The Walking Dead's 8th season, where Daryl Dixon gets his vest back, was completely lost because it was huddled in the darkness. Meanwhile, Euphoria seems to be taking fans' complaints to heart. This HBO show has now put a laser focus on its lighting. It went as far as to get Kodak to refurbish a part of their factory to start producing the previously discontinued Ektachrome 35mm film again. This stock gives Euphoria its distinctive look, and all of this while viewers can still see all the action. Nicholas Kay is a technician at Digital Imaging, and he told Variety that many directors will shoot scenes darker on purpose. This is according to Nicholas, to remain authentic to the backdrop, but he did add that the viewing setup simply has to be optimal, but creative lens only goes so far. To see this and other excuses for low-light scenes, keep watching. So, is this bound to change anytime soon? This is a good question. Complaints are streaming in, but HBO is still defending the dimly lit Driftmark episode of House of the Dragon, saying it was mostly unintentional and creative call. One would have thought, especially after all the vitriol, because of the same thing in GOT, they would have upped the brightness ever so slightly, but no. Also, one has to ask whether the fact that both Driftmark and The Long Night were directed by the same person. Miguel Sapochnik did both, and he's an Emmy winner. Things may become a little lighter now that he's departing in season 2, and this may be a creative license that high-rating shows allow themselves. Unique ways of shooting have become the hallmark of prestige shows. Succession does that by almost giving the camera the personality of one of the Roy siblings, while Lotus achieves it by lathering everything in a yellow glow, similar to the quality City of Light in Hawaii. In fact, many HBO shows can be identified by their unique styles of cinematography. The fact that both House of the Dragon and its predecessor Game of Thrones have had to put up a defense against poor lighting as a deliberate choice is a shame, though. Nothing makes up for not being able to tell the difference between Aemond Targaryen and Aegon in the latest episode. Maybe with a lot of fire expected toward the end of the season, things will be a little brighter now. To find out how things turn violent and set the story arcs for the rest of the series in motion, stay with us. All of that in a moment. Also, does Aemond Targaryen's brutal character metamorphosis deliver better than anticipated? Yup, he lost an eye in House of the Dragon's 7th episode, did Aemond Targaryen. When the Driftmark funeral for Nana Blondel's lady, Laenor Velaryons, was over, her dragon, Vhagar, was squarely in Aemond's sights. Remember, Vhagar is the oldest and most feared dragon in Westeros. Queen Alicent Hightower's second son, however, bonded with Vhagar, and this put in motion a tragic conflict with Aemond's cousins, and in the end, it cost him his left eye. So how did it turn so violent so quickly? Aemond's clash with Jaehaerys and Lucerys went from bad to horrendous in no time flat. It didn't help when Aemond fairly accused Luke and Jace of being bastards. The four cousins, Jace, Luke, and their sisters, the twins Rhaena and Baela, battled with Aemond up to the point where Lucerys took the prince's eye. Losing an eye sets Aemond's character up perfectly. Watch to the end to find out why. And episode 7 was brilliant overall. Aemond's story in the 7th episode of House of the Dragon was really stellar. At the funeral, he was empathetic to both Rhaena and Baela, but when he was accused of stealing their late mother's dragon, things turned nasty in true Targaryen fashion. He also remained uncharacteristically clear-headed when Alicent attacked and eventually slashed Rhaenyra before King Viserys. For him, the loss of an eye was a fair exchange for acquiring Vhagar. In this episode, it would have been super easy to turn Aemond into a disgraceful villain. Instead, he came out the other end as a fascinating and complex character one wants to watch. Leo Ashton gives a wonderfully layered performance that makes Aemond the most interesting of the House of the Dragon offspring. Then finally, losing an eye sets up Aemond perfectly. Aemond will get his respite later in House of the Dragon, despite Queen Alicent demanding that Lucerys be punished for her son's injury by equal maiming. Aemond does draw first blood though, and starts the pandemonium in the Civil War. Rhaenyra sends her sons to secure alliances, on the Black Dragons no less. As soon as she hears Aegon and Alicent have claimed the Iron Throne, Jaehaerys heads north, and Lucerys is pointed south to win over Storm's End. However, at Storm's End, Vhagar, along with Aemond, was already pressing King Aegon for support. Aemond gives chase when Lucerys tries to leave peacefully and finally exacts revenge for his injury. Lucerys and his dragon become the first casualties in Dance of the Dragons, and from this point onwards, Aemond grows in stature, influence, and importance, and he becomes ever more brutal as the House of the Dragon story unfolds. And that's it from the House of the Dragon universe, and for this video as well. Keep an eye out for our next upload.